All right. So for those of you who are on Zoom, there's a couple options. If you go to the very top of the screen and you go View Options, you can then click on either Speaker View or Gallery View. And the lower left-hand picture is what the Speaker View looks like. We hope that you use that view. That way you'll be able to see our speakers when they're talking. And where that red arrow is, there's three little dots right in between the picture and the PowerPoint. You can slide that back and forth so you can make the speaker bigger or smaller, however works for you. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and on the Career USA YouTube channels for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, and if you post a comment in the chat box or have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your comments, name, and picture to appear. For those of you who are on Zoom, we ask that you please enter any questions you have throughout the event in the chat box. And that chat box is down the very lower of the screen. Just click on chat or open up the box. You can enter your information in there. I will be posting a sample resume and a sample T-cover letter in that for you to download a little bit later in the presentation. For those of you who are on Facebook, we've got several people watching on Facebook right now. Just enter your comments in the comment box, and I am monitoring that, and I will make sure we get your questions answered. We will review a couple resumes here at the end of the presentation, and you can submit your resume using the chat box. Oh, it looks like we've got both of them already, so I will go ahead and skip that and move on. Good afternoon, my name is Jeff Morris. I founded Career DFW back in 2008 to help the unemployed in the DFW area. In 2012, I started CareerUSA.org after a visit to the White House, after finding out that there was no other website like Career DFW in the country, and I thought it's time to go help more people. I do facilitate and I lead the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. I've been doing that since 2007, and I'll tell you about our speaker tomorrow at the end of this presentation. And I've been a member of the practice interview team since 2017. We've got two speakers today. Carol Brickel, as you know, is our speaker. She's been with us from the very, very beginning when we started this, and she's invited Susan Graye to jump in. So ladies, I'll let you take it over.
Great. So thank you, Jeff, for that wonderful introduction. And I'm Carol Brickel, and what I'm going to do first is I'm going to share my screen, my PowerPoint slides. And Jeff, if you could give me a thumbs up if you can see my slide. Excellent, good. Yeah, I'm really pleased. I'll have Susan introduce herself in just a moment, but she and I worked together at HP at the same time at Hewlett-Packard, and I always had great admiration for her. And so I'm just thrilled that she's joining us from Houston today. And the fact that we can use Zoom technology, we can bring in guest speakers from everywhere, Jeff. So I might be inviting people from Europe maybe next time. So anyway, and we will be using the Zoom platform and the interactivity capabilities in Zoom. And so the first thing I'd like for everybody to do, and I'm doing it as well, is to click on the participant box. You can see the list of participants. We have nearly 20 people attending here, and then we have some people on Facebook Live as well. And for those in Zoom, if you can go into the participant box and at the bottom of the menu, click on the green check mark, if you can hear my voice okay and see the screens. So, woo, green check marks are already popping up. Wow, that's a fast responding audience. Okay, good. They're going to keep us on our toes today, Jeff and Susan. Okay, that's excellent. And also the other box I'd like for you to click on, and I'm going to do the same thing, is the chat box. I don't know why that happens with me. Sometimes, I'm going to do one more thing. Sometimes my chat box doesn't show up. Oh, there it is. Okay. I just had to click on something else. I clicked on annotate, and then the chat box opened up. Don't ask me why. Excellent. So I'd like for everybody to open up the chat box because we will be asking questions of you, and that's your way. You can ask questions of us at any time, and we will be monitoring the chat box throughout the presentation. And to get warmed up using the chat box, I'd like for everyone to go in and type in, think about the last 30 days. And how many hours have you spent either updating or refining or working on your resume? So go in the chat box and type in a number. How many hours over the last 30 days have you spent tweaking, updating, modifying, reviewing, updating your resume? Good, good. I'm already starting to see some responses in chat. Now we've got a good group today. Good. I'm seeing numbers everywhere from 1 to 2 to 80 to 100 hours. Wow. Okay, and then 15, 10. So a lot of time. So resumes are good to get you in the door. And then what gets you a job? Interviewing. So I'll ask another question. How many hours have you spent practicing an interview in the last 30 days? How many hours have you spent actually practicing interview questions in the last 30 days? I'm seeing some numbers. 0, 2, 3. Okay, guys, that's how you get a job, is by having a very successful interview. And Jeff mentioned the pit crew, the Dallas pit crew, and I also volunteer there, and that's a wonderful organization. And I don't know of anything like it anywhere in the country, but if you want to practice your interviews, you can send an email to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com and get on the schedule, and we'll do a mock interview with you and give you feedback. You just have to provide your resume and a sample job description. So I do encourage you to not only work on your resume, that's good, but also practice answering interview questions. And then by way of introduction, I've been a hiring manager for many years. I worked at EDS that was acquired by Hewlett-Packard in 2008. And in most of my roles there, I was a hiring manager, and I even mentored other hiring managers. And then I took early retirement in 2012, and I was able to gain 6 years of experience as a recruiter, working both in agency environments and corporate environments. And I retired recently from Next Step Recruiting here in Dallas, and I keep in touch with them very closely. And they tell me when they have hot job openings. I'm going to announce 3 quick hot job openings. And if you meet these requirements and are interested, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I can get you connected with the right recruiter at Next Step Recruiting. Number 1, there's a need for a staff accountant who specializes in real estate and Yardi software and access database modeling. And this is located in the Grapevine area. So staff accountant, real estate, Yardi, and the Grapevine area. Also, there's a senior accountant position in Dallas. 4 years of experience is required, plus a degree. Financial service industry is required. NetSuite is a plus, and revenue recognition. That's a senior accountant position in Dallas. So contact me if you meet those requirements. And even if you're a degreed accountant looking, go ahead and contact me because they have multiple job openings. Also, there's an HRIS position in Irving, and candidates must have strong Oracle e-business suite HR software experience for that. So it's an HR analyst in Irving. So if you meet any of those qualifications, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I can get you connected to the right recruiter. And so I really enjoyed working as a recruiter, and it prepared me then to be in this role of a career coach. And as we talk about resumes, you'll get a lot of different opinions from a lot of different perspectives. And it's good to, listen to all the different perspectives. And then it's your job really to choose what works best for you. So we'll be sharing a variety of perspectives. And like Jeff, I also volunteer with the Dallas Pit Crew. And once again, if you want to practice interviewing, you can send an email to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com, and we'll get you on the schedule. And I've been certified by the Professional Association of Resume Writers and Career Coaches. And now I'd like to let Susan introduce herself. She's my co-presenter today. Excellent.
Thanks, Carol. So as Carol mentioned, we work together at Hewlett-Packard, and my entire background has been in the global talent attraction and acquisition roles. So also known as recruiting, strategic sourcing, talent scouting. you know, and looked at it from various lenses, from the candidate lens to the hiring manager lens, as well as the processes and such involved. So I'm thrilled to be here with you today to kind of build that, you know, bridge the gap, you know, and help you understand, you know, what the recruiters are looking at, thinking behind the scenes, as well as the strategic leaders, as well as recently invested a ton of time in what's changing in terms of the future of recruitment. So we'll tap upon that a little bit today as well.
Great, thank you. So today, Susan's going to be providing the instruction around ATS systems because of her background. And then also she'll be sharing her top 5 resume tips. So yeah, so as our agenda in the first part, we're going to talk about ATS systems, and Susan will share her knowledge and her resume tips. And then I'll walk through a review of key components of a resume. And if everyone can go into the participant box again, and on the bottom, click the green check mark if you've ever seen one of these Thursday resume sessions before, or click the red X if you've never seen one of my Resume Thursday sessions again. Okay, and so we're seeing a mix. So if you've seen one of these Resume Thursday sessions, press the green check mark, red X if you've never seen one before. Okay, good. So what we do every week, sometimes we review some of the basic information, but we switch up the content every week, so to address both audiences. So we'll cover the key components of a resume, pause for any quick Q&A, and then we'll move into looking at 2 sample resumes. And thank you to the 2 people who've already submitted a couple of samples. We'll look through those and we'll talk about what we like and any suggestions regarding improvement. So we're ready to get started? Good. Now I'll have Susan talk about applicant tracking systems.
Awesome. So, you know, I love the way Carol interacts. So we're going to do, you know, start the same way. So who, if you could do a green, you know, yes, you know, if you're familiar with an applicant tracking system, and even better yet, share the name of some of them that you're familiar with.
Yeah, I'm seeing some green check marks.
I want to talk about, and thank you so much. So, you know, I want to talk about a couple things today, right? First is an applicant tracking system and the great mystery behind that, and why they're in place, right? So the applicant tracking system from a corporate standpoint is there so we can, you know, as a recruiting organization, specifically see who applies for specific requisitions. And where this is so important to you as a candidate is you need to keep in mind, even if you've applied for one position, many times recruiters are assigned to different requisitions, even if they're similar. It's so important. Schedule time. If it's a key company you want to work for, go back to that career site and see what new positions they have that are opening up and apply for them. So, you know, I mention it because it's the magic behind it for the recruiters, and it's huge because the recruiters, it's the first step of the process for recruiters, and they're responsible for managing that applicant flow. And the ATS system is also what the US government looks like. It looks at when they're auditing our systems. The second thing, and I want to see how many people are familiar with the term rec number, requisition number. So if you can say yes if you are and no if you aren't.
I'm seeing some green check marks.
Awesome. And let's see if anybody has the answer to this, and it's really important. Does anybody know why it is so important when you apply to make sure you're recording the requisition number? If you do, put it in the chat box. Let's see if anybody has the magical answer. Yeah, you know, it's searched by that, and yeah, they could be multiple jobs. So the key reason, there's a couple, right? One is recruiters and hiring managers are assigned to a specific requisition number. If you are going in through an employee referral, It's so important for the employee to know the requisition number, because that's what the employee referral, you know, is based upon, and they can know who to contact within the organization. So it really is your navigation system. And, you know, as I said, many times companies have volume positions where they're hiring multiple, say, accountants. So it's really important to track which of the requisition numbers you've applied for, as well as the status of each. So hopefully that's helpful to you. The other thing I want to touch on real quickly, and I promise, Carol, I won't go too long on this slide, is there's a couple new ingredients for the future of work, right? One is something called a talent community. So in the chat box, has anybody gone to a career site and not only applied for a specific requisition, but joined a talent community?
Yeah, I'm very interested in hearing that too, to see if anybody has done that. And I'm seeing one yes so far, and a no and a yes. Okay, so a couple people have. 3.
Oh, awesome. So talent communities, unlike applying for a specific rec, are a way for recruiting organizations to start building a relationship with you. A couple organizations currently using them are IBM and McKinsey. And once you sign up for their talent community, they will send you curated information based upon your needs, as well as push job notifications for you. So if you have the opportunity to apply for a talent community, definitely do it. The third area I want to hit on real quickly is a term used frequently in sales, you know, CRM. But is anyone familiar with what a candidate relationship management system is?
I don't know if I do, so I'm interested.
So in the recruiting organization, many times you'll have a recruiter that's full cycle, but you might have a front end, which is a sourcer. And that sourcer, or, you know, sometimes for the full cycle recruiter, they have multiple positions. Say they're focused in terms of finding system engineers. So they're building this talent community. The CRM may be used, a great example at a career fair. One of the tools is Yellow, Y-E-L-L-O. And you can take a picture of your resume and suddenly you're in this system, but it's not an application for a job at the company. So if you're part of their candidate relationship manager, you may get emails, you may get text, you may get communication from the company, but you haven't formally applied for a job. So hopefully that's, you know, great information for you. And it's something that recruiters use, because candidate experience, I just got off a webinar this morning, is one of the #1 topics among recruiters. Being, you know, customer friendly, listening to you, curating, and providing you a top experience when you apply with their company. And Carol, I know you mentioned some of these other ones, so I'm going to hit on them real quickly. Jobscan.co, great tool. It allows you to see how your resume scans, you know, in terms of matching up, and gives you keywords and such. So it's, you know, as you're applying for specific positions. From a resume as an attachment, something really important. If you're applying for multiple requisitions, look at the resume that's attached before you hit submit. The resume that you had attached for an earlier requisition may not be matching to the degree you want it to for the new position. So take that extra time, you know, especially if you have multiple versions of your resume, to look at the resume before you hit submit. Cover letters, totally up to you. Everybody has their own thought process. But if you do one, really important, it's a great idea to take a snapshot of the job posting. And Carol has some great cover letters she's going to show with you, and show how your experience matches to the requisition. You know, it's a great opportunity, feature benefit, sell yourself. Keywords, can't call on them enough. Keywords are the way recruiters search for things. But one of the new things, and I'll leave you with this, Carol, and I'll let you take it from here, that is starting to happen is there's new tools. So the webinar I was in this morning is you'll see chatbots early on as you're applying, asking you questions to help qualify you. So really read that job posting before you go to the career site, because they may do that screening even before you formally apply. The other thing is some companies are now hiring individuals to man the chat so that you have a conversation with somebody and qualify or disqualify yourself even before you've completed an application. And with that, Carol, I'll let you move on.
And actually now, Susan,
my resume tips. There you go.
So we'll go through them real quickly. Yes.
Yes.
I'd like for you to speak to these.
Number one, focus on results and accomplishments. If you're still, working, make sure you have quantifiable numbers and be able to talk about, this is what I did as a result of my actions. The second, very similarly, feature benefits. It's like somebody telling you my computer has backlit lighting. You want to tell somebody why that's important. Mentioning the feature doesn't go very far without letting somebody know this is what this will do for you. Number three, utilize your action verbs, and Carol's popped them up for you to start each bullet. Number four, keep it simple. The analogy I always like to use is that of a menu. Like a menu, the job of a resume is to whet the appetite, not provide the recipe. And number five, when you can, customize your resume using those keywords to align to the position, especially if you've done different things in your career. Don't let the core piece of why you're qualified get lost in too many words. And now, Carol, I'll let you take it over.
Excellent. And Susan, I do appreciate you sharing your knowledge, because when we work together, you're a respected leader in recruiting. So it's really fun to hear your perspective, and you can see the summary of Susan's 5 key tips here on the screen right now. So now we'll move into some other review of basics regarding formatting resumes. And really your goal with your resume is to make it easy for those applicant tracking systems and also recruiters and hiring managers to see very clearly you're a good match for a job, because you want them to pick up the phone and call you in for an interview. And you want to make sure your formatting is clean, that there's enough white space, that it's easy to read. And all the participants watch your the chat box, because Jeff will be uploading a sample template of a resume and a cover letter. So you want to make sure it's clean, easy to read. The overall length, you don't want it too long, and you probably don't want it too short either. For an experienced professional, usually 1 page is almost too short. And so 2 pages tends to be the sweet spot, but there are some exceptions, like in the government services area and higher education, highly technical jobs. Sometimes those resumes can go on for 3 pages or so because of additional information. And in terms of how many years to show on your resume, that's a question I get a lot, especially from people that might have 20, 25, 30 plus years of experience. How many years to show on your resume? You basically have 3 options, and it's really up to you, and I'll talk through them. And if everyone can go into the chat box and type in A, B, or C regarding which option you think works best for you. And so in terms of showing the number of years on your resume, one option is to show all of your experience. And that's what I did when I applied for a job. And I got a job at the age of 60. I showed all of my experience from 1980 on, and that worked for me because the people I was networking with were people that knew me, they knew my background, and so I just put it all out there. And I see quite a few people have used the A option. And B is to cut it off and just show maybe the most recent 10 or 15 years. And I found as a recruiter, sometimes that would cause some confusion. And we'd get into an interview, and if I asked somebody a question, they started telling me a story and said, oh, when I worked for the government, I did such and such. And I'd be looking at the resume going, wait a minute, where is that? And literally I had people say to me, that was so long ago, I didn't even put it on my resume. And it would just cause issues. So a third alternative is to focus and provide details on the most recent 10 or 15 years or so, and then have a new heading that says prior relevant experience. And you can list the company names and your job titles And you don't have to list the dates in that section if you don't want to. And Susan, I'm curious, you know, these options, do you have any thoughts or recommendations or experience based on your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think my primary recommendation is know your audience. And it really, really depends upon the company, you know, and the person, you know, and I think so much of what we talk about is personal taste. I hate to say it, but there are certain companies where I, you know, would only, you know, show all of your experience. There are other ones where you might show your most relevant. And, you know, the other thing is if you're going to show everything and you've been working for a while, you may want to be very careful to think about what are the points you want to bring up. And the other really important one is when you're interviewing, try to bring up things you've done in the last 3 to 5 years. Don't bring up things you've done, you know, 50 years ago or 20 years ago. You know, the more relevant you can make it, the better off you are.
Great, thank you for that additional insight. And now we will talk about key components of a resume. And I'll be referring to the resume that, and thank you, Jeff, for putting it in the chat box. So all participants are able to download a template. And it's a very simple format. And it's based on a format actually that I developed as I was working as a recruiter and getting so much feedback from hiring managers regarding what they like to see. And then I discovered coincidentally, when I got my certification as a career coach, they used a very similar template. And then when I studied the materials that are taught at the career transition workshops that are taught here in the DFW area and through Career DFW, they teach a very similar format. So it's a tried and true simple format that hiring managers are used to seeing. And these are some of the key components. You could have other components as well. If you have a lot of publications or certifications that you want to show, there could be additional components, but these are some of the key components. And somebody's asking how to download the materials. I think you can just go into the chat box and click download and it'll let you download the materials. So go into the chat box to do that. Good. And so we'll walk through the key components, the heading, the summary, key accomplishments, which is an optional section that you may want to consider, and then professional experience and education and software. So starting off with your heading, you want to make it very clean, white space with your name right up top. And you do want to have your phone number, email, your LinkedIn address is very important nowadays, and your city or the closest major city. And you may want to include your zip code if you wish, because some recruiters recruit on or search for zip code, and you do not need to include your physical street address. And Susan, as I'm going through these slides about formatting, if you have any insights that you want to add in, just feel free to jump in at any time. And the next section is summary profile. That's my favorite section, and this is where I spend a lot of time when I'm coaching clients. And usually I coach people based on what jobs they're applying for. And so we look at job descriptions and really study, or we'll look at one job description and really study the key words, and we'll make sure those words and that language is used in the opening description about who you are as a professional. And this is not an objective, like I'm seeking a position where I can grow my skills. No, this is a profile that describes who you are as a professional and the skills that you bring. And then it's really great to have a section called areas of expertise, which is a nice strong word, better than core competencies or key skills. Expertise is just a neat word. And then have about 9 bullet points. 9 seems to be kind of the magic number that, again, align to the skills in the job that you're applying to. And this section is usually very easy to modify when you are applying for a job. And then somebody asked a really good question. How many lines do I write in my summary? Thank you for asking that. I've seen some people write 6 to 8 lines in their summary. Jeff, do you have a favorite number of lines in the summary? I think Jeff has a 3. Yeah, 3. 3 is my favorite. I'll give you 4 if it's really, really, really good. But 3 is kind of the magic You don't want it to go on too long. Yes. Good. And the next section, sometimes after the areas of expertise, if you're in the type of job where the hiring manager is looking for achievement of goals and quantifiable targets, things, roles like sales or business development or some financial roles, even some recruiting jobs, the key accomplishments section might be a good way to summarize how you've met targets over the last maybe 10 years in your career. And so I'm sharing that as an example as well. And then professional experience, everybody needs to have that for sure. And you want to make sure it's really easy to read, reverse chronological order, and make sure your verbs are parallel. If you're still working, have the most current job in the present tense where appropriate. Sometimes if you worked on a project, you have to make a bullet in the past tense if that project or result is completed. But, and then past jobs, definitely make your verbs in the past tense and have them be consistent. That's what I mean by parallel. I've seen so many resumes with verbs ending in ing, ending in s, some present tense, some past tense, and I've had hiring managers throw out those resumes for lack of attention to detail. So make sure each bullet point starts with a strong verb that focuses on the result. And you should limit the number of bullets per job. I've seen some people have a list of bullet points of 15, 20 long, and that's too many. A hiring manager cannot absorb that many bullet points. So pick the most important and relevant bullets and limit it to maybe 5 to 8. And they should focus on results. Again, we've talked about that, and I'll show an example here in a moment. And so the bullets shouldn't sound like a job description, but really emphasize the results. So how do we make our bullets emphasize the results? And so what I like to do is play the so what game. If you've ever heard me talk about the so what game, give me a green check mark in the participant box. If you've ever heard about the so what game, I don't know if I see any check marks. Give me a green check mark if you've ever heard about the so what game. A couple of green check marks. And I learned about this from Shipley Associates who teaches how to write proposals for the government services area. For bullet points, they'd always ask, so what, to get to the true benefit. So that's where I learned that. So one time I was coaching an individual, this is a true story. This was a business analyst, and they had a bullet point in their professional experience. It was pretty good. They developed Visual Basic programs to automate the conversion and migration of data. And that's pretty good, but I said, well, so what? What was the benefit? What was the result? So what was the outcome? And the person said, well, actually it did result in reducing the data migration time. It eliminated errors, it increased stakeholder confidence. So then they were able to rewrite that bullet point and start with really the results with a stronger word rather than just developing a Visual Basic program. They're able to say reduced data migration time and eliminated errors and increased stakeholder confidence by developing this Visual Basic program. So playing that so what game can help you get to that true result. And then a common question I get, or common issue that I see on resumes, is when people have multiple jobs at a company. I see people put their job and then put the dates out to the right. And so it looks like they're a job hopper. And it usually takes me a moment as a coach or when I was a recruiter to determine, oh, that person worked for that same company all that time. So really the best practice is to write the dates for the full time you're at the company there. And thank you, Jeff, for the annotation there. Good. So write the full dates that you were there with the company. And then for each job that you had at that company, you can put those in parentheses, but don't have those right justified. Have them in by the job title. And that way it really stands out the full time you were with that company. And then also it shows your progression and the fact that you stayed with it. It shows grit, that you worked through things and stayed with the organization. And maybe you even got promoted. So it really shows a good picture. And then one other common question that I get also is how to handle situations if the company you've worked for has been acquired or changed names. And for example, when I retired from HP in 2012, I had a couple different options for my resume at the time. I could have said HP. In fact, I guess I worked for HP Enterprise Services, formerly EDS, or I could have said EDS acquired by Hewlett Packard in 2018. So I don't know, Susan, do you have any recommendations on this as well? Or there's a couple different options.
No, I think you gave a great one, and it is confusing in today's world of mergers, acquisitions, and divestitures, because sometimes, I mean, I think about Hewlett Packard, it's, you could have worked for the same company and have it be 5 different names. So some of them not even related and unrelated to anything you did. I like your thought there.
Yeah, that worked well for me. And then we do have a question relating to this in the chat box. Thank you for that. Name for subsidiaries of a big company. So if you're working for a small subsidiary and it's not recognizable, but it's a division of Xerox or something big or Dell or something, it might be worthwhile to say that. Jeff or Susan, do you have any input on that particular question?
I agree. I think you should put it on there. I mean, we had one person here in town that they had 3 different companies that had purchased over the years, but the only company that I'd ever heard of was Campbell Soup. So you want to make sure that if your company gets bought and then bought again, or the name changes 3 different times, put them all on there, because somebody's going to recognize one of the names and go, oh, okay, Campbell Soup. They won't recognize the other 2.
Yeah, I agree, and a great benefit for you having been part of a merger, acquisition, or divestiture is those are hot skills, and especially in today's COVID world, it shows your ability to deal with change effectively. So yeah, I agree. Have that big name there, but that you've worked in a small company could be attractive to certain companies as well.
Great, thank you. And then also we have another question in the chat box. How do you list companies that are no longer in business? Maybe they went bankrupt and you wouldn't be able to call them for a reference. And yeah, that happens a lot. So I would list the name of the company on your resume. And then also when they're asking for references, hopefully maybe you've kept up with your supervisor from that company and maybe still have their contact information so that you can share that. And
the other hint I have about that is that, you know, yesterday was tax day. And so hopefully you went back and you've thrown out all your tax files for 7 or 8 years prior, you know, the more than 8 years prior. But I've always saved my W-2 forms, or the tax document that I get from the company. I've got them all the way back from when I first started, because quite frankly, only one of the 5 companies I've worked for in the last 25 years is still in business. So how could you prove that to somebody? Well, at least you could show, you know, if they go say, well, we can't find any information. Well, here I can supply my tax documents showing that I was employed there at the time. You know, they may take it or not, but if nothing else, they'll show that you're efficient and that you're, you know, good at keeping records and stuff.
yeah, that's really good. That's really good.
No, that's awesome. And that generally falls in place at the background check piece, which most companies do anymore. But you're right. And that's generally done through a third party. If you can have that degree of organization, great tip.
Yeah, excellent. And somebody's asking, how common is it for hiring managers to ask for references from previous experience? Now, it's very interesting. I think this has changed. When I started working as a recruiter in 2012, every hiring manager checked like 3 references when I worked for a staffing agency and I did corporate recruiting. And where I did some corporate recruiting, they just stopped doing reference checks because they found it wasn't a good use of time and it didn't really change the outcome. So I think the pendulum might be swinging a little bit, but I would always be prepared to have 2 recent supervisor references and a coworker reference. But I think the pendulum is starting to swing.
And the other thing you want to keep files of, you should be keeping files of all your owed any owed recommendation you've got, a letter of recommendation. You should have files of any of your past reviews. Have all that stuff so that in case you need it, you can try to reach back out to that old supervisor and say, hey, you wrote this about me. You know, will you put that as a LinkedIn profile, a LinkedIn recommendation?
Great. Okay, and then also it's important to list your education and software skills on your resume, and even Microsoft Excel, especially if it's a requirement for the job, even something as basic as that, that'll give you some points. And somebody's saying they don't have the W-2s anymore from their companies. I don't either. That's just Jess. So, yeah. So you'll have to find other sources, maybe previous managers or something like that. Now, slides. I'm going to show one more slide, and then we'll go on to our sample resumes. And this slide shows a job description over here on the left, and then a resume on the right. And we've talked about the importance of customizing the resume to the job description. So every time you're applying for a job, you need to focus on jobs, especially in today's job market where it's so competitive, because there are less job openings right now and more candidates. People are getting jobs, but you do have to work twice as hard. Really focus on jobs where you meet the requirements, and take a moment to study the requirements. Look at the language in the job description. Look at the skills that they're looking for. For example, I'm highlighting a few skills, like this is a business analyst job. They're looking for people that can document business requirements, and people that have improved processes and can document flow charts. Somebody who's familiar with Agile, they're looking for Agile. So make sure that if you have that experience, that it's on your resume. And if you don't have that experience, like with Agile, for example, study up real quick, watch a YouTube video and say, oh yes, I'm familiar with Agile and I just attended an online training class, you know, just to make sure you can address everything in the job description. And when you do have the skills, make sure they are there, word for word, in your resume. Okay, good. And so now what I'm going to do is stop sharing my slides and move over to the resume. And if Susan or Jeff have any additional points while I'm pulling up the resume, feel free. If you have any additional points regarding resume formatting.
Yeah, while you're doing that, Carol, the only other suggestion I might have is you may want a master resume with everything on it, so that you can use that and then you can take things out as you're applying for specific positions. So you might want to just do a brain dump, put all your bullets down, but then, you know, as you're applying for these different types of roles, especially if you did different things for, you know, the companies you work for, you can then easily pull together a customized resume versus having to do something each time. If you have that master one, it'll make your job easier.
Excellent. And I know Jeff has given that advice as well. That's great. Yeah,
Way to go, Jeff.
That's a great suggestion. And Jeff, I do want to do a quick time check. Do we have, what time is?
We need to be done by 2 o'clock. So as long as you're done by about 1:55, we'll be in good shape.
Okay, good, good. And somebody's asking an important question. How much do I need to know about a skill to mention it on the resume? If I've done 1 or 2 LinkedIn learning videos about Agile and know what it's about, is that enough to write it down? One possibility might be under your education, you could just simply list LinkedIn learning, Agile or whatever. So at least it appears honestly on your resume as something you've studied. Do you have any other suggestions for somebody who may not have a lot of experience about something and not to lie on the resume, of course? Any other?
I think it's right. You want to tell the truth, not the god awful truth. So yes, you have, I would put it under, if you needed to show it, put it under learning that you've taken a LinkedIn learning class or a lynda.com class, just showing that you've done it or you've taken the class. That just shows you're familiar with it. They probably will go and ask, so can you tell me a time that you've used Agile on a project? And then you're going to go, then you may get stuck, but you never know. It depends on how you.
Yeah, and if they ask, tell me about your knowledge or tell me about a time you've used Agile. you can say, don't say no, I've never used it. Don't start a sentence with no, but say, I'm familiar with Agile and I've recently taken a course on it. And it's very similar to an iterative process we used in another environment, and I'm very comfortable with those types of iterative project management processes or something like that. So, okay, good question. So I'm sharing one of our sample resumes, and what I'm going to do is scroll through it, take about 5 or 10 seconds, which is about the length of time that a recruiter or hiring manager may look at a resume. I'll scroll through it really quickly, and I'd like everyone in our audience to look at this resume and type in, a couple keywords about what you like about it. And if you see any suggestions for improvement, type those in as well. Okay, good. So I'm going to scroll down. There's the summary section. There's skills. There's experience. The dates out to the right. There's company with bullet points. Experience, education, and then accomplishments. Additional information. Okay. Well, I'm here under the accomplishments. A best practice for bullet points or having a section is to have 2 bullet points possibly. So I'd encourage you to try to think of maybe some additional accomplishment, and it may not be an award, but it might be, an accomplishment where you saved something, and you could call it key accomplishments, but try to have more than just one bullet point when you're going to have a section. And Susan, you like the heading and the logo. One thing we've talked about, and I'm interested to hear if anybody has any input on this, is that if the heading is in, I can't tell if it's in the header section of Microsoft Word, the ATS system can sometimes bypass that. And then also if there are any special characters, like with this logo or the colors or anything, if there are any special characters, that could cause issues with the ATS system from being able to read this data. So for the ATS friendly version of the resume, I usually recommend a very clean version without any extra formatting.
This would be good to give somebody, or, if you're submitting to somebody, or, you're networking with somebody and they're going to pass it on to the hiring manager back to HR, that's fine. But you wouldn't want to use this to fill out an application with, just because that reverse text probably won't catch. The computer won't know what to do with that JJ inside of the box, and it could cause you some issues.
Yes, yes. And I like there's a summary, and where possible, if you are, okay, your most recent job was media buying director, and if you're applying for another media director job, I would put media director there instead of the word summary, just so it's very clear that's who you are. And I've heard other recruiters recommend that. Put the title right up at the top. Now, if you're kind of transitioning to a different role and you've never really been that title before and it would be a stretch, maybe not. Maybe just have the word summary, but where you can, maybe put the word media director there. And I'm seeing some good comments that people say this is a very clean format and organized use of white space.
I would make the margins a little bit bigger. You've got space on the second page because the bottom of the second page looked like it was blank. So you could, if you squeeze things in a little bit more, or just give a little bit bigger margin, I think it would allow somebody to write notes on it.
Yes, yes, and a lot of recruiters do that. And the summary is actually quite strong. Results driven, I think that's hyphenated because it's modifying this title, and maybe make that capitalized if that's a title. Who excels in the execution of integrated marketing programs. Strong proven track record of generating revenue. I like those strong words. Communicative and detail-oriented leader, successful managing. So those are good key words that you can modify, again, based on the language you see in the job descriptions that you're looking for. And sometimes you can have the softer skills or professional skills like good communicator or detail-oriented. If the job description is looking for that, you could have it up in your summary, and then you can focus on more the technical professional skills down here. And so I see there are 8 of them very cleanly laid out. And these top skills, either down this side or across the top, should align with the top skills in the job that you're applying for. So strategic buying and execution and forecast and budgeting expertise should be the top skills, and revenue generation should be top. So you want to prioritize that based on the jobs you're looking for. And then somebody asked a question about ATS readers and what's the best way to format your resume to read versus a black hole. I have 2 answers to that, and I'll see if Jeff or Susan have an answer to that, because in today's market, that is really critical regarding what's the best way to get a response to your resume, and so it doesn't just go into a dark hole. Number 1, the most critical thing is to align the language and the keyword searches, because then the ATS system will prioritize you towards the top. Number 2, make sure your resume is easy to read. So within 5 to 10 seconds, that recruiter can look at that summary, those key bullet points, and maybe your most recent job and maybe your degree to see if your bullseye meet the requirements for the job. And then number 3, and this is really critical in today's environment, just applying into the ATS system, the chances of you getting called for an interview, nearly 0, because there could be hundreds of candidates there. And even the top 10% could be 30 resumes to go through, and the recruiter won't have time to call all those people. So you have to take an extra step, not only apply online, you need to network through somebody you know that can send your resume to the recruiting leader, or call or contact the recruiter that posted the job and say, hi, I'm Carol, wanted to introduce myself. I just applied for your corporate recruiting job. I meet all the requirements. I have 5+ years, you know, happy to come in for an interview. Whenever I got a call like that as a recruiter, I always invited that person in and usually hired that person.
Will you scroll down to the second job?
Recruiter.
Will you
Yes.
scroll down to the second job? I want to point something out real quick.
Sure, sure.
Okay,
And if you can't find the name of the recruiter, call the
So-
recruiting leader. Good.
You've got to be very careful here, because you put that slash right here. Nobody is going to search for a manager/broadcast. You're going to search for a media manager, but by putting that slash in there, an ATS system isn't going to see, because of the division, they're not going to see, you know, supervisor / assistant. That's not going to work. You've got to make sure you put a space in between those slashes so that the search engine will take care of it. If you were to just put a slash next to the B, you know, there's no /broadcast. It's not going to go find that. So just be real careful to put spaces. I know you're trying to do it because you're trying to make it all fit on 1 line. And in this case, you just need to make it fit on 2 lines.
That's a very good point, Jeff. And those look like 3 different jobs to me. Like it was a buyer, then a supervisor, then a manager. So typically what people do is put the company name and the dates over to the side, like we showed in that slide, and then put your job title underneath, and then in parentheses, the dates that you were the manager level, and maybe list a couple bullets. And then the supervisor job, in parentheses, the dates you were there, and a couple bullets, and the media buyer. And if you take out this extra space, you may have room to do that. So the person that wrote this resume, if you want to talk through that in more detail, we certainly can do that. And Jeff, it looks like we're just about out of time. And I know there were 2 other wonderful people that submitted resumes. If since we didn't have time to cover your resume today, you're welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn and we can set up a time. And during this pandemic, I am offering a free career coaching session to anyone with a need, with a financial need during this time. And the people that we didn't get to your resume, I'll give you a free little session if you'd like to talk about your resume. And if you have any comments about this session, feel free to enter them into the chat box, things you like or things you want us to improve. And I think there are a few more questions. And if we don't, again, if we didn't have time to get to your questions, you're welcome to reach out to us directly.
Great. All right. Well, Carol and Susan, thank you very much for being with us. Great information. And Susan, I hope you'll join us again in the future.
I would love to. Thank you. Thank you.
For those of you
Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, anyone. If you know, I welcome connecting and helping as well.
Yes, and if you do send a LinkedIn connection to one of the three of us, please be sure to write a comment, send a personal note. Tell us you saw us here at today's presentation or how we should connect, because it makes it just much better. Because personally, I don't connect with people who don't send me a note because I just want to know where you're from. For those of you who are on Facebook, or if you're on the Zoom call and you'd like to get more information or have a copy of the sample T cover letter, the sample resume, or more information on the PIT crew, you can send me an email to webmaster@careerdfw.org, and I will be glad to forward that information to you. Please join us. I'd mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, tomorrow the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group will be meeting at 9:30 in the morning. Our speaker is going to talk about networking the old-fashioned way. He has informed me that he does not want his presentation recorded, so it will not be on Facebook afterwards. I'll be deleting it, and will not be on the Career USA YouTube channel. So if you want to see his presentation, you've got to join us tomorrow morning at 9:30. Next Tuesday, LinkedIn Tuesdays, our speaker will be Locke Alderson. We do a LinkedIn presentation every Tuesday at 1 o'clock. And then next Wednesday, we've completed our 13-part series for now. We'll be picking that up again in August, but for now we got a couple speakers who are going to just talk for give their little thing. So this Wednesday, Walt Glass, or this coming Wednesday, Walt Glass will be presenting distinctive interviewing. And you can join us on Zoom, you can join us on Facebook, and you can check the Career FW calendar for these events and all these other events that are going on. Let me skip through those because we're just about out of time. Don't forget, there's lots of other career networking events that are out there. You can check the Career FW calendar. Just click on the webinar teleseminars and you'll see all the events that are there with how to get into the Zoom account. And some of these will also be on Facebook for you to view. These sessions will be recorded. This one has been recorded. It'll be on the Career FW Facebook page, the Career USA YouTube channel. Hopefully you'll follow and subscribe to both of them. If you're on Facebook, it looks something like this. If you see the little red arrow, we hope you'll click on like. And if you like and follow us, what will happen is every time that we go live, your phone will rattle or shake, or you'll get a little vibration saying we're currently live on Facebook. And you can just click and you'll be able to follow us there. If you click on that green arrow, it'll open up the box that's right above it, and it'll show you, you click where the blue arrow is, it'll show you all the videos, and they're all categorized, so you can see all the resume ones together, all the interviewing ones together, and the other categories that we have set up. If you're on YouTube, once again, do the same thing. Please subscribe to the channel. We'd really ask if you do that. And if you click on playlist, you'll see at the very bottom, there's different playlists that are set up, and down, if you click on that red arrow at the very bottom, you can see all the playlists that's set up for the effective resume. It will look something like this, and you'll be able to find all those sessions that are out there. And I'll be loading this session up to Facebook, up to the Career USA YouTube channel in about an hour, hour and a half. It takes a little while for me to get it up there. So just a reminder, Career DFW is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have no full and or part-time employees. Everybody's a volunteer. All the speakers that are willing to talk, myself included, I'm a volunteer. I don't get paid to do this. We're just here to help you. We want you to land your next great opportunity. We hope that when you do get your next opportunity, you'll remember who we are and where we, maybe who helped you with the career tip that got you in the door. Maybe you'll make a donation. We ask that you do so we can continue to do the things that we're providing right now. If your company offers matching donations, please look us up on the list. Allow your company to double the size of your donation. If you don't see our name on the list, please reach out to me and I will get my name. I will get the Career DFW name onto your list. So Carol and Susan, once again, thank you very, very much. Thanks for joining us today, and everybody have a great rest of the week, and hopefully maybe we'll see some of you tomorrow morning at 9:30.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.